Don't know about you, but have you ever said words that you wish you could take back? As they come out your mouth, you wish you could grab them and shove them back in. Or maybe you've seen a famous person being lambasted because of a tweet they made and they kind of deleted it, but it was too late. The control delete button didn't happen quick enough and people quickly got hold of it and were pulling them down. Well, today we have a story about Peter. It's in Luke chapter 22, verses 54 to 62. And here Peter denies Jesus. And he says words which I bet he wishes he could take back, because we hear at the end that he wept bitterly. Now, this is a courageous moment for Peter because he enters a hostile world. Here Jesus has been arrested and all these people are gathering because they're eagerly waiting what's going to happen, and Peter sits amongst them. Can you imagine this? A follower of Jesus sitting amongst the people who are crying out for Jesus' blood. And as he's sitting there, feeling extremely nervous, the first question comes in that says that you know this Jesus. So it's quite a light accusation. Well, you know him. And here the courage of Peter slips away. And whilst this accusation is there, he turns and says, I do not know him. For Peter, he immediately distances Jesus from his own life. Actually, I have no knowledge of him. I don't know about you, but when conversations go on with people who don't know Jesus and they talk about faith and they talk about church, whilst we may not actually go, well, I don't know Jesus, but we keep quiet and we maybe change the conversation. And if somebody does say something, well, maybe we just kind of give a mild remark, but that's about it. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes the fear gets the better of us and we wish we could press Control Delete when we get home and take back what we didn't say. And then later in this story, Peter is asked again. He says, aren't you one of them? Now, this question goes even deeper than the first question because it's a challenge of his relationship with Jesus. It's a challenge about you're one of them. You are a disciple. It's having a go at his commitment. Peter, the man who said he would die for him, he's now being asked about his commitment. And when the crunch came to it, he said, I am not one of them. He kept his faith private. He kept it to himself. His lips said, I don't belong to them. I don't follow him. When it mattered, he backed off. I don't know how many times somebody, when I was working and somebody said, oh, you go to church, or you believe in this Jesus, and kind of becomes quite hard. And actually I then stopped telling people that I went to church because I quite liked my private faith, or because being a Christian is unpopular. And here Peter is a challenge to me because I do need to turn around and say, I am one of them. I am a Christian. And then finally, we have this challenge that another person says, you are one of them. You were a Galilean. Now, it's interesting that he talks about being a Galilean because it's challenging his very accent. It's quite noticeable. And Galileans were known to be the followers of Jesus, all bar Judas. And here it's kind of like he turns around and says, I don't know what you're talking about. You see, Peter is a Galilean. Jesus has affected his whole personhood. He's so distinguished as a follower of Jesus that his story, his whole life, his essence is wrapped up in Jesus. And here, as he turns around and says, I do not know what you're talking about, he's saying, I do not know the story and the impact that Jesus has had on my life. Whilst I may have said I'd go anywhere, but actually, Jesus' story hasn't really changed me. And at that point, Peter goes out and he weeps bitterly. But the story doesn't end there, because we know at the end, after Jesus' resurrection, he restores Peter. He tells him 3 times to feed my sheep. And restores Peter to be what I would say is one of the most courageous disciples going, because he steps out and he tells people all about Jesus. He goes into places and he doesn't back down. And I love this because here, Jesus restores people who have denied him. As we approach Good Friday and Easter Sunday, maybe you might want to think about the times when maybe you have backed away from conversations with colleagues or friends or family members, and you kind of just, courage slipped. And whilst you may not have said, oh, I don't know Jesus, the actual action of our life says otherwise. But here's the thing, don't feel condemned. Feel that as we bring it to Jesus, he can restore us. He forgives us and he allows us to step into courage. He doesn't go back to the tweets of old when he says, well, look what you said in 2010. He brings us back to him and says, go on, step out. I can use you. Why don't you step out today in courage, in forgiveness, being restored by Jesus, and be used by him today?